Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into this really fascinating, complex world behind something millions, maybe billions, watch. Reality television. I mean, think about it. Back in 2019, something like 75% of basic kibble shows were in that whole unscripted category. We tune in, right, for the entertainment, the excitement, that drama that feels so real. But, well, what if that reality isn't quite as real as it seems? This deep dive into the sources you pulled is all about peeling back those layers. We're looking behind the cameras at the contracts, the stories they build, really figuring out what unscripted means.
Exactly. And we'll get into why these shows are just so appealing, to networks and to us watching, but also the, frankly, extraordinary lengths producers go to, the hidden tricks, and maybe most importantly, the actual impact on the people involved.
Yeah.
Get ready to maybe rethink where that line is between entertainment and authenticity. It gets pretty blurry.
Okay, so let's unpack this. If you've ever, fantasized about being on a reality show, you probably think, ooh, the audition's the hard part. But the material we looked at suggests maybe the toughest bit is actually signing that contract they put in front of you.
Yeah, it's not just signing your name. These things are described as ginormous contracts.
Yeah.
They often make contestants waive some really basic rights, even rights to their own life story. You see that with The Biggest Loser or The Voice. Their contracts literally say the show can portray them falsely, embarrass them, ridicule them. Participants actually waive the right to sue if the show does, like, a total hatchet job on them.
Wow.
And here's the thing, this isn't unusual. It's common practice in courts. They typically just uphold these agreements. That's kind of shocking. So they can twist your image completely, and legally, you're just stuck. And beyond what they can show, what about what participants can't say? The confidentiality clauses sound pretty intense, too. Oh, absolutely. We saw reports with Survivor, for example, suggesting a $5 million fine, $5 million, for each time someone breaks the confidentiality agreement.
Whoa.
So yeah, that keeps people quiet. Even long after the show's done, you can't really speak out negatively about your experience. It effectively silences them.
$5 million. That's just, yeah, that's a staggering amount of leverage. And this control, it's not just legal papers, is it? It's physical, too, like before the show even starts filming.
Right. The sources describe this really intense pre-filming period. Potential contestants, they might be totally sequestered, like stuck in hotel rooms. No internet, no phone, sometimes not even books or magazines. There was an example from The Biggest Loser where they apparently took away a contestant's hotel key card.
Seriously?
Yeah. It's designed to be, well, lonely, exhausting. And it often includes a battery of tests, mental, physical, drug tests.
Yeah.
This isolation, it serves a couple of purposes. Helps control the story, keeps outside stuff from interfering, and keeps the results secret until airtime.
Okay, so you've got people locked down by contracts, isolated physically. It kind of makes sense, then, that producers don't just, sit back and hope for drama. What kind of manipulation tactics did the sources reveal? How do they get those moments?
Well, some of it is pretty shocking, honestly, how far they'll go. There was this one former producer from The Bachelor who talked about a trick. Getting contestants who were just dumped to cry on camera.
Oh.
Apparently, they'd tell them they were about to get proposed to. Then after the rejection, the producer would, dab lemon or even jalapeno juice near their own eye to sort of cry along and encourage the contestants' tears.
No way. Jalapeno juice.
Yeah, and on Australia's The Biggest Loser, contestants said there weren't even real weekly weigh-ins. They'd stand on these fake scales, say they worked really hard that week for the cameras, but it wasn't actually happening week to week like that.
Wow. Okay, so it's physical tricks, but also psychological stuff, like using alcohol, long filming hours.
Definitely. Making people tired, lowering inhibitions. The sources mention using free-flowing alcohol, keeping people up late. It makes them more talkative, more sensitive, and asking really pointed questions like, do you miss your kids? Just digging for that emotional reaction.
Right, hitting those vulnerabilities.
Exactly. And sometimes the characters themselves are just constructed. Contestants might be told, okay, we need you to be the villain, even if they're naturally, a sweetheart.
They'd actually tell them to act like a villain.
Yeah, and sometimes threaten to cut them from the show if they don't play the part.
Yeah.
Audrina Patridge from The Hills. She admitted they staged fights. Producers just demanded it.
That's just wild. So situations are manipulated, personalities are assigned, but sometimes the real people aren't even real people. Like actual actors.
Yeah, that happens too. Shows like South Beach Tao, apparently totally scripted, just actors reenacting things.
Okay, but surely the big competition shows like Survivor or The Amazing Race, they're different, right?
Well, you'd think so, but the research indicates even They openly use professional actors and models sometimes. They even have a term for them.
Mactors.
Actors, okay. And Survivor has even, like, reshot competition scenes using body doubles just to get better camera angles.
So they're restaging things even in competitions.
Seems like it. And sometimes the whole setup is tweaked.
Like how?
Well, take House Hunters. The sources say couples often have already bought their house before filming even starts.
What?
Yeah, they just pretend to look at the other two places for the show's narrative.
So the whole decision-making process is fake.
Often, yeah. And even something like Iron Chef America, which seems so spontaneous.
Huh.
Turns out the chefs might get a list of possible secret ingredients beforehand. And they definitely know the main ingredient because they see the shopping list. So not quite as on the spot as it looks.
Okay, wow. So with all this, the planning, the casting, the on-set manipulation, what does it really mean for what we end up seeing? It really sounds like that phrase, unscripted does not mean unwritten, is dead on. A lot of the writing happens way after filming.
Precisely. And that's where the editors become, well, incredibly powerful. They're often the main creative voice shaping the final product. They take potentially hundreds of hours of footage and have to sculpt it into a story. The sources say they're crafting an inevitable occurrence into an emotional, humorous, or provocative journey, basically making sense out of nonsense. And one really potent technique they use is called Frankenbiting.
Frankenbiting sounds ominous.
It kind of is. They take tiny bits and pieces of things a person said, maybe from different conversations entirely, and stitch them together electronically to create a whole new sentence or sentences that the person never actually said in that sequence, or maybe at all.
Whoa! So they can literally put words in someone's mouth.
Effectively, yes.
Yeah.
And they can cover it up visually, too. Maybe show some B-roll footage while you hear this constructed sentence.
One of the editors quoted in the material made this distinction, right, between documentary editing and reality TV editing.
Yeah, it was pretty stark. They said documentary editors might trim things for clarity, make them more succinct, but they wouldn't usually invent lines for people. But reality TV, the quote was, there's no ethics in reality as opposed to journalism or documentary.
That's a pretty bold statement. No ethics.
That's what they said. The reasoning seems to be, the contestants sign the contract, so editors feel they have carte blanche. They can make them whatever we want them to be.
So besides Frankenbiting, what else do editors do to shape the narrative?
Oh, lots of things. Perfectly timed sound effects to heighten tension, you know, that dramatic dun-dun-dun music. And using reaction shots, maybe a stolen look taken from a completely different time or context, and inserting it to make it seem like someone's reacting to something specific, creating drama that wasn't there.
Right, so even if they can't legally change who wins a competition, they can completely shape how we perceive everything leading up to it.
Exactly. The results might be fixed, but the journey there, that's often heavily manipulated through editing, following these pretty standard reality TV formulas.
Okay, so you combine the intense production, the manipulation, the psychological games, and then this incredibly powerful editing. What is the actual human cost for the people who go through this? It sounds like it could be pretty rough.
It really can be. The material paints a pretty concerning picture. For one thing, physical injuries on set seem to be increasing. Producers, sometimes focused on ratings or cutting costs, might skimp on safety, hire people who aren't fully qualified, and it leads to serious harm, sometimes even, tragically, death.
Like the Biggest Loser example, bleeding feet.
Yeah. Reports of contestants having bleeding feet from workouts that were clearly too extreme, too sudden for their bodies, pushing way too hard, too fast.
And then those contracts come back into play, right? With the liability waivers.
Exactly. Those ginormous contracts often mean that if someone does get hurt, the production company isn't liable. The participant signed away their right to sue for compensation.
So you get injured, potentially seriously, and have no recourse. That's rough.
It really is. And beyond the physical risks, there's just immense psychological pressure. We talked about how they deliberately create intense situations to get those emotional reactions. Some critics describe these practices as crossing into genuine mental cruelty. Things like isolation, deliberately depriving people of sleep, relentless questioning just to make them break down and cry.
Yeah.
And there's evidence linking appearing on these shows to serious mental health problems later on.
That 2019 report, it found at least 38 reality TV stars or contestants had died by suicide.
38? That's horrifying.
It is. And the report suggested part of the issue was maybe insufficient mental health screening before the shows, combined with the intense pressure of sudden fame and dealing with social media scrutiny afterwards. It can really exacerbate existing issues. That's heartbreaking. And what about just life after the show? Does it always lead to fame and fortune? Or can it mess up your regular life?
It's definitely a gamble.
Yeah.
Resuming a normal career can be really tough,
Yeah.
especially if you are edited into being the villain.
Right.
How popular the show was, whether you were the sweetheart or the bad guy.
Right.
It can all massively impact your professional life, how people see you long term.
And you mentioned earlier, people often feel rushed into signing those contracts.
Yeah, that's a common theme in the sources.
Yeah.
Participants report being pressured, not having enough time to really understand what they're agreeing to, what they're giving up, which raises big questions,
Yeah.
about their legal standing. Should courts just automatically enforce these contracts without looking at how they were signed? Especially given the power imbalance between a big production company and an individual.
It's a lot to think about. So, okay. Despite everything we've just discussed, the contracts, the manipulation, the editing, the human cost, reality TV is still massively popular. Why? Why do we keep watching?
Well, the sources suggest a few key reasons. Basic things like voyeurism, just being curious about other people's lives, escapism, simple entertainment value. And there's often a relatability factor. Seeing those raw emotions, even if manufactured, can resonate. For some people, seeing others struggle on screen can even maybe make them feel a bit better about their own problems, sort of a comparative comfort.
Yeah, I can see that. And there's maybe a deeper thing too, right? Using the shows to kind of reflect on our own lives.
Working through maybe similar conflicts vicariously, or finding comfort in the way reality TV often wraps things up neatly. Problems get solved, people find love, they win the prize. Usually a happy ending, which isn't always true in real life.
Right, it offers a kind of resolution.
Exactly. And crucially, there seems to be this sort of unspoken agreement between the people making the shows and us, the audience. We've kind of learned collectively that reality is not real in this context. It's like a willing suspension of disbelief. You know it's constructed, you know it's edited, you know it's not entirely spontaneous, but you let yourself get invested anyway. You engage with the characters, the situations.
We're sort of in on the act, in a way.
Yeah, you can say that. We're complicit in the fantasy, to some extent.
Wow. Well, this has been a really revealing deep dive today, taking apart the world of reality TV, from those ironclad contracts and the isolation tactics to the psychological games, the intense editing. It's just so clear that what ends up on screen is this meticulously constructed product, often like miles away from spontaneous reality.
Yeah, we've seen how they actively induce drama, how they can shape personalities, even bring in actors, and how editors really are the driving creative force, piecing narratives together, even using things like Frankenbiting to literally put words in people's mouths. And importantly, we touched on the real personal costs for participants, the physical risks, the mental health struggles, the difficulties they face after the cameras are gone.
But it also really shines a light on us, the audience, doesn't it? How we engage with these shows, knowing or at least suspecting that they're manufactured. We still look for entertainment, for connection, maybe even see bits of ourselves reflected back.
Absolutely. So maybe after digging into all this today, here's something to chew on. If reality TV is mostly about engineering these stories from carefully selected, heavily manipulated footage, and if we, the audience, are kind of implicitly okay with the fakeness of it all, what does that tell us about how we define reality more broadly? And, how much constructed truth are we actually willing to accept just for the sake of being entertained?